gorgeous plant people. Welcome back to Reading Mindfully. My name is Iana.
And my name is Stacia.
And today we are doing part 1 of our Q&A, so stay tuned.
Okay, let's get started.
Alright guys, so you did go ahead and submit your questions on the community tab as well as Instagram, so we're going to go ahead and start this Q&A so that way you guys get the answers to your questions. And the first question asks, if we were to downsize our plant collection, what would be the first plant to go?
I probably could let my Majesty Palm go.
Why?
Because I think I have a lot more interesting plants, although I do enjoy having it, but I think I have more plants that are more unique, so I probably could let that one go.
And for me, if I were to downsize my plant collection, it would be my alocasias, and they are just really too much work. I am more of a lazy plant parent, and they just require a lot more than I'm willing to give, so my alocasias.
Okay, next question.
And another question we got is do we prefer terracotta or ceramic?
I prefer terracotta. I like terracotta because at times I can be an overwaterer, and terracotta is readily available. At least it was before the pandemic. So, and also I like the look that I get from the terracotta. I like that more cohesive look. Yes.
Yeah, same. I like the cohesive look of the terracotta. It goes a lot better with my decor, which is more natural, and it's just cheaper. If I have about 100 or so plants, and if I were to buy ceramic pots, that would be a whole separate budget or fund in itself. So I just stick with terracotta because I'm able to, have all my plants in pots that way.
I agree.
Alright, and the third question is asking us, do we prefer distilled or tap water?
Which do you prefer?
I like tap water just because it's readily available at the sink. You could just go ahead and fill up your watering can and water your plants. And if I was to buy distilled water at the grocery store, it would cost me a lot of money because I think I used to go through about 9 to 10 gallons, so I feel like that would be pretty costly for my plant collection.
And I also use tap water. I have several containers that I fill up in between waterings so it can have time to sit, before I water. But yes, I also use tap water.
It's just a lot easier. But if you do have plants that need distilled water, then you probably wouldn't have an option to use anything other than distilled water. So, and the next question we got is, what plant would you absolutely not recommend to others?
That's a hard one, I think, because everybody have plants that they like or they want to at least try once. For me, the calatheas weren't good for me, or or some of the succulents that I wasn't good at, if you could believe. I overwatered them. So maybe a calathea or maybe a Diffuser. I wasn't good with the Diffuser as well. So that just depends on the person, I think.
I would say calatheas, really, just because they are a lot more finicky than other plants. They do require, distilled water. They are susceptible to spider mites, so I wouldn't really recommend that unless you are really good at calatheas. Otherwise, the only plants I wouldn't recommend are plants that you buy without doing your research.
That's true.
And the next question we got is, what do we do with our duplicate plants?
Sometimes, I do have 6 fiddle leaf figs. I really like those plants, so I do have them to give me that nice full tropical look here in the house. And as for the other duplicate plants, I have 2 Australian tree ferns, which I really love. And I bought 2 of those because it was just one left in the store, so I went back and purchased the last one, and it was inexpensive. But my other duplicate plants, I tend to buy those to make a grouping in the pot so that the pot is, I have a fuller specimen.
And she has a lot of duplicates, actually, if you were to go through her plant collection. But I do the same thing. If The only ones I really have duplicates of are my Syndapsis, or some of my Syndapsis, or the Hartley Philodendron, and like my mom said, we just put them together to get a fuller pot. But I never really keep duplicates on their own, just because I want to conserve space and make sure I have space for other plants in my collection. The part that we got is, what do we do with our cuttings? It would be the same. I normally just put my cuttings back into the pot to fill out the pot, because they will also produce their own shoots. So then that way you get the original plant developing the leaves, from the mother plant, and then you'll get the growth from the new cuttings. So that's what I do. I just put them all back in the same pot so I can get a fuller plant.
For me, I really don't propagate very much. I propagated my Monstera Delicioso, and I also propagated my Pink Princess because it started to revert.
The next question is asking, what kind of stakes or posts do we use to stake up our plants?
I prefer bamboo. It's readily available. It's inexpensive. Sometimes if you order a plant, or if you purchase a cactus, you get a bamboo stake that comes with those plants. So I like to look at those plants. They don't rot, so my favorite would be bamboo. How about you?
You can pretty much use any material that won't rot once you start watering the plant. So if you want, you could use cedar, you could use copper, you could use PVC pipe, just materials like those. And then if you don't want to be able to see what the original material is, you can just wrap it in sphagnum moss or coco coir. But I usually just use bamboo sticks. But I think for my heavier aeroids, I might have to switch to a cedar stake, just so I can have something thicker.
It's a good idea to use coco coir.
And then another question we got is, what is our ideal soil mixture?
Oh, well, I tend to buy black gold, and I purchase the cactus potting mix, and I also add perlite to it. Once in a while I may add a few mini bark chips, but most of the time it's the cactus potting soil and perlite. That will help with, it helps me rather with fungus gnats, and it also helps if I tend to overwater my plants at times. So I think if you use a regular potting mix, it can become very dense and heavy for the plants and the roots. So I prefer to use a cactus potting mix. And you?
I don't use cactus potting mix, but I do like black gold is my favorite. If I can't get black gold, I just use Miracle Grow. But I just mix regular potting soil with perlite, and I find that to be pretty simple. I don't like to buy all the different kind of amendments, because like I said, I do have a larger collection, so I like to keep it simple. But I would say about maybe a 60% soil, and then a 30 or 40% perlite seems to do well. And I do that for all of my plants. I don't have any special aeroid mixes or anything like that.
Sounds good.
Keep it simple.
That's right.
How do we treat pests? It depends on what kind of pests you have. If you have something like mealybugs, you could just use alcohol and Q-tips. If you have thrips, skip the neem oil and go straight for the insecticidal soap. If your thrips are bad enough, you might have to use systemic in the soil, but it depends on what kind of insects you have. And don't just always use neem oil, because neem oil does not go against everything. Neem oil does not really work on thrips, and does not really work on spider mites, so it depends.
So you can spray alcohol if you have mealybugs. A lot of times if you see pest on the leaves, you can use a soap mixed with alcohol. You can use an antibacterial soap, or some people use Dr. Bronner's. Always start with the least
least harsh. And I always try to start organic.
Yes. Start with
and pet friendly.
Yes, and just work your way up. So I start with maybe alcohol and soap. If that doesn't work, then I will use my Nature's Care by Miracle Grow. I really like that. I would spray that on. You want to make sure you spray after the sun goes down so that you don't burn the foliage. Mm-hmm. And you also want to make sure, if you have pets, to make sure you read the label.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we have all the products that we use in our description, but we really do like the Miracle Care insecticidal soap.
That's a good one.
But like I said, neem oil does not help with everything. That is more of a preventative measure before you have these pest issues. And the next question we got is, what state do we live in? I said this a couple of times on my channel, but we live in Delaware. You know, we're on the east side, so yeah.
That's good.
Whew. And the next question is asking, how old are we? How old do we look? Put that in the comment section. You guys just take a guess of how old you think we look.
Okay.
Don't know if we'll actually disclose it, but just put down just put a guess. I like to see what people, what people guess, because I do get a wide range for my age. But how old do we look? Try not to hurt our feelings. Any advice on being a plant tuber? I definitely just made a video on this, so if you haven't seen it yet, check out that video. But basically, I would say, one, to be authentic. You want to just make sure that you are presenting yourself in a good light. You are putting yourself out there, because you are divulging a lot of information, so you just want to make sure that you're authentic and genuine, and so that way people know you're the person that you say you are. And then second, I want to make sure to let you guys know that if you're starting a channel, you want to make sure that you're putting enough value out there, so that way you keep people coming back to your channel.
Those are good. I'd say just get started. Yeah. A lot of times we say we want to do something, and we can say we want to do that for weeks, months, and then the months turn into years. So if you have a passion for it and you are excited about it, and just go for it. Just get started. Yep, you can do it.
And we got a question asking us, what is our favorite plant from our childhood?
I don't know if I have a favorite, but I've always had a love for tropical plants. I've always had a love for big tropical plants, plants that had large leaves. I've always loved birds of paradise, especially when they were in bloom and things like that. So at some point, I've always the monsteras with the big leaves and the deep fenestrations, those types of plants. And you?
I don't think I have any from my childhood, but the second part of the question is, what sparked your passion for plants? And I would just say that it's just the growth pattern of plants, the different variations to the leaves and the petioles, like say for instance like a varicosum, just naturally occurring variations in the plants just make me passionate, because it's just amazing to me that these plants are naturally occurring. And I don't know, it's just, I guess it's really deep if you just think about it, sit there and think about it for a minute to just really understand that this is natural. So I just think that's really cool.
I think so. I think sometimes when you go to, you would go to the zoo, and you would go into the rainforest, or you would go to maybe a desert, or you would go to San Diego, and you would see how big plants can actually grow. It's just amazing to see how old maybe a tree is, or just to be able to care and nurture something and watch its growth, I think is really special.
Yeah. The next question we got is, how do you keep plants alive in the winter?
It's probably the same all year round. You water just a little bit less in the winter, depending on where your plants are situated. I have my plants in a south-facing window, so they still get quite a bit of light. I do keep my shades up all the time, so I tend to water about every 7 to 8 days or so, but it's pretty much the same. I did add growth lights for my fiddles, especially the ones that were struggling a little bit from having less light, and the ones that were root bound. But other than that, my regimen is pretty much the same.
Yeah, I would actually say that my routine is actually less than it was in the summer, just because you're not watering as much. But for the winter, the only thing you really have to worry about is your lighting. So if you don't have as much light coming in, or if your light isn't staying as long, you just have to move your plants closer to your windows, or just supplement with grow lights. And then the second thing you just want to worry, well, I guess two things, but you just want to keep your humidity at least
that's true.
50 to 60%, and then make sure that your temperatures aren't dropping. But usually people don't have to worry about their temperatures because you don't keep your house cold. I would hope not. But those are just, it's pretty much the same. You're just maintaining, basically.
True.
Maintaining till things get warmer.
And if you don't have a humidifier, you can always add a pebble tray, or you can place a cup of water or saucer of water around your plants, or you can group them together. That way it will increase the humidity. Yep.
And we got a question asking us, what is our favorite plant that we don't have? I don't have an, if I have a favorite plant, I own it. So I don't think I have a favorite plant. Oh, lies. It's not true. I want the Platycerium elephantoides. Because I had that before.
True. And I would like to have, again, the Discoria elephantippes in my collection again. I had that before.
So I think those are it. And is there a plant that we are afraid of? No.
I don't think there's a plant that I'm afraid of. I think that if I really wanted a particular plant, I would at least try it. If it's within, my price range, I would try it at least once. If I really wanted to have it in my collection.
Yeah. And for me, I'm not afraid of plants. There are some plants that I don't deal with because they're too much work. But if a plant just doesn't act right, I would put that plant outside. So I'm not afraid of any plants because I know how to put it outside until it gets its act together. But no, there's no plants that I'm afraid of.
That was a good question.
Have you ever thought of selling your cuttings?
No, I haven't. Not at this time. Especially with the way that the mail system is currently. I would hate to send out a cutting to someone and it leaves our home in good condition, but once it arrives to the purchaser, it doesn't look as nice, or they're not happy with it. So no, not at this time.
I would have to say no. I'm not sure if I would ever want to sell plants, to be honest, just because I know there's a lot of good people out there who would be really excited about getting plants, but there are also equally a lot of people who would like to complain and don't understand the process of shipping plants and things like that. So no, not at this time.
Okay.
All right, and the last two questions that we have are, the first one is, have you ever dropped a plant?
I don't think I've ever dropped a plant before. I have.
She's dropped mine.
I have damaged a leaf because I have tropicals and cactus plants, and sometimes I would keep them next to each other, and when I went to rotate, say, my tropical plant, it did catch on to the cactus and it tore the leaf, which I was really sad about, but that's about it.
Yeah, she's dropped my plants.
It was an accident.
When she came over to help me bring my plants back in from the summer, and we were cleaning off the shelves and everything. Or I think we were rearranging.
Yes.
But we were, wiping down the shelves and everything. And one plant was on this side, and it was the heavier plant, but we were taking off the plants on this side. Or what were we doing?
Yes.
Somehow we were arranging the shelf, and it just catapulted all the plants across the floor, and I think it was about 3 or so, 3 or so plants. None of them were damaged. It did crack a few terracotta pots, but no plants were hurt in the process.
So technically I didn't drop it. It fell off the shelf.
Catapulted. It was, I put on my Instagram stories. I don't know if it's still on there for you to check out, but it was a hot mess. And I didn't even own a broom, so then we had to go out and buy a broom to get all the soil up. That was a trying day. And then the last question is asking us, how many plants is too many?
I would say it's too many when you're no longer happy for caring for the plants. If it seems like it's a more of a dreaded task, or you're just really not in the mood to do your watering, to go through and inspect them, to go through and inspect the plants for pests, to go through and to wipe down your leaves, to remove all your dead flowers or your dead leaves. If you feel like it's too much, or if it's overwhelming, then you may have too many plants. Or what you could do is break your plants into your rooms or your areas into zones where you're just doing part 1, part 2, or 3 or 4, however many zones you would need at one time, and that way it's less overwhelming.
I would say too many plants is too many when you're feeling like that, but over a longer period of time. Because I often feel like I have too many plants, but that feeling doesn't last too long. So if you're feeling like that longer than a week or say a month, then you probably have too many plants. Just because we all get overwhelmed at times, but if you're feeling that over a longer period of time, then you would have to reevaluate how many plants you have. But I wouldn't say that it's necessarily a limit or a number. It's more of a feeling that you get when you have too many plants.
You just need to assess your situation. Sometimes maybe you have chosen a particular plant that's not good for your environment. So if you don't add more light that the plant may need, or give it the fertilizer that it needs, then the plant is never going to thrive. So you have to be mindful of choosing plants that work well in your environment, or the environment that you're willing to create for that plant. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, but I would say it depends, because some people say 30 is too many, 50 is too many. So you have to assess that for yourself and know what you can take care of realistically, and don't buy any more.
Sometimes it's the placement of your plants. If you place them in an area where it's hard for you to reach the plants, or you have them up on a shelf or something like that, where you have to move furniture around, then you may not feel like doing that. Because I have my plants behind a table, or I have a few that are behind a chair, so I have to move those out to be able to inspect them and water them. So sometimes maybe you have to rearrange your plants so that it's easier for you to reach them, so that it doesn't seem so daunting when you do your watering or your plant maintenance.
Alright, so that's all the questions we're going to answer for this video. Thank you guys so much for submitting your questions. We really had fun answering them. But let us know in the comments section if you guys would like us to make this a regular thing. We're thinking about maybe making it live, so put it down in the comments section. But as always, we just want to thank you for watching our videos, liking the videos, and subscribing, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye-bye. Take care.